Today's story is about a mom, a dad, and the moment their co-parenting peace shattered over one decision.
Hey there! Subscribe to hear new, real-life stories every single day. You won't want to miss them. Let's begin.
I, 31FL, share custody of my 6-year-old son with my ex-husband, 32M. We've been divorced for almost 3 years now, and while I wouldn't call our co-parenting relationship friendly, we've managed to make it functional. We stick to the schedule, we split school events evenly, and we both pay for what needs to be paid for. It's not perfect, but it works. Most of the time. We met when I was 22 and he was 23 at a friend's birthday party. He was charming, funny, and just the right mix of confident and goofy. I had just finished college and was working my first real job. He was finishing up his apprenticeship in electrical work. We clicked instantly. That kind of whirlwind connection where within a month everyone's asking when the wedding is. We got married after a year and a half. The first few years were good. We bought a little fixer-upper, spent weekends painting walls and arguing over what shade of white was actually white, and adopted a scruffy rescue dog. Then our son was born, and that's when the cracks started showing. It wasn't one big thing. No infidelity or dramatic betrayal. It was more like hundreds of little things piling up. He'd make impulsive choices without telling me, like quitting a job because he didn't vibe with the boss, or buying an expensive piece of tech when we were barely covering bills. He loved our son, but didn't always think ahead about routines or emotional needs. Meanwhile, I was growing more and more anxious about stability. By the time our son turned 3, I realized I couldn't keep going in a marriage where every month felt like rolling dice. We separated, and the divorce went through about a year later. We agreed on a 50-50 custody split, week on, week off, and for the most part, we've stuck to it. But here's the thing. Our parenting styles are very different. I'm structured. Bedtimes are consistent, meals are balanced. Well, most of the time. I'm not a robot. And I like to introduce changes slowly so my son can process them. My ex is the opposite. He's the fun parent. Late night ice cream runs, skipping homework because it's just one day, letting him stay up for a Marvel movie marathon on a school night. I've learned to bite my tongue on most of it because I know I can't control what happens in his house as long as it's safe. But when it comes to big changes, especially involving other adults in my child's life, I feel like there should be boundaries. For context, after our divorce, my ex dated here and there, but nothing serious enough for me to hear about or for our son to meet anyone. I, on the other hand, have been in a relationship for almost a year now, and my boyfriend hasn't still met my son. That's been a mutual decision. We both want to be sure before blending lives. My son knows mom has a friend, but he doesn't know the details yet. So that's why, about a month ago, when my ex casually mentioned he'd met someone, my reaction was cautious optimism. I told him I hoped it was going well. We didn't talk much about it after that. Then, last week, during a quick handoff in the driveway, he said, almost offhand, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to have my son meet my girlfriend next weekend. We're going to take him to the zoo together." I froze. I remember standing there with my keys in one hand, my son running toward the house, and my ex looking at me like he just said he was picking up milk on the way home. I asked, "How long have you been seeing her?" He shrugged and said, "About a month." Something in me snapped a little. A month? 30 days, 4 weeks, and he's ready to introduce her to our 6-year-old? I could feel this knot in my chest, part fear, part anger, part disbelief. I told him flat out, I don't think that's a good idea. He raised an eyebrow and asked why not, as if the answer wasn't obvious. I explained that I thought it was way too soon, that our son needs stability, and that bringing someone new into his life, only for it to potentially end, could hurt him. He immediately got defensive. "It's my time with him. I can do what I want. You don't get to tell me who he meets when he's with me." We went back and forth for a few minutes, but I could feel my voice shaking, and I didn't want to argue in front of our son, so I just said, "We'll talk about this later," and walked inside. That night, I barely slept. My brain wouldn't shut up, running through every worst-case scenario. What if this woman seems amazing but then disappears in a few weeks? What if my son starts asking for her and gets upset when she's gone? What if she's not a good influence? And yes, I know I'm probably catastrophizing, but this just feels like another example of him not thinking long-term. I told myself I'd try to approach the conversation calmly next time, but inside, I already knew this was going to be a fight. 2 days after that driveway conversation, I decided I wasn't going to let this simmer. If I did, the zoo trip would happen before we'd even had a proper discussion, and then it would be a done deal. So, during my lunch break, I texted my ex. "Can we talk about the zoo thing? I'm not comfortable with son meeting your girlfriend yet." He replied in under a minute. "There's nothing to talk about. I'm introducing them. She's going to be in my life, and I want her to be in his too." That quick dismissal made my chest tighten. I called him right away. When he answered, I tried to keep my voice even. "Look, I'm not trying to tell you who you can date. I just think it's too soon to bring someone new into Son's world. It's only been a month." He gave this little scoff. I could practically hear the eye roll. "You're acting like I'm bringing some random stranger around. She's a good person. She works with kids, actually. She's fun, she's sweet, and Son will like her." "That's not the point," I said, feeling my voice rise despite myself. "I'm not questioning whether she's nice. I'm questioning whether it's healthy for him to meet someone who might not even be around in 2 months. Kids get attached quickly. It's not fair to him to have people coming in and out of his life." There was this pause on the line. Then he said, "You think I'm just cycling through women? That's insulting."
I closed my eyes and took a breath. "I think you make impulsive decisions sometimes. You jump in fast, and sometimes it doesn't last. That's just the truth. I'm not saying you're a bad dad, but..." He cut me off. "You are saying I'm a bad dad. You're acting like I can't make good choices for him on my own time. Do you realize how controlling that sounds?" I felt my cheeks heat up, even though no one could see me. "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect our son from unnecessary emotional upheaval. There's a difference." We went in circles for another 5 minutes, him insisting it was his right, me insisting it was too soon. Finally, he said, "Look, I'm not asking for your permission. I was telling you as a courtesy, but I don't need your approval." And then he hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. That evening, when I picked up my son from school, I casually asked, "So, did Daddy tell you about any fun plans for the weekend?" He shrugged and said, "We're going to the zoo, and I'm going to meet Daddy's friend. Her name's Kelly. She likes dinosaurs." My heart sank. He already knew her name. He already had a picture in his head. She likes dinosaurs, so she must be cool. I forced a smile and said, "That sounds fun," but inside I felt this pang of helplessness. Over dinner, I texted my best friend, Claire, who's been my sounding board through all the messy co-parenting moments. Me. X is introducing Son to his new girlfriend this weekend. They've been dating 1 month. Claire. Ugh, way too soon. I wouldn't let that fly either. Her quick agreement felt like a lifeline. But then I remembered the parenting forum I sometimes lurk on and how people get divided about these situations. Some say you have to let the other parent run their own household. Others say you have to set clear boundaries to protect the child's emotional well-being. I was somewhere in the middle, except this time my gut was screaming no. The next day, I decided to try one last time. I called him again in the morning. "I need you to understand this isn't about her. It's about the timing. Can you just wait a couple more months before introducing them? If you're still together, great. Then we can do it in a more gradual way."
He sighed like I was asking him to postpone a wedding. You're acting like I'm moving her into the house. It's a zoo trip. They're going to look at animals, maybe have an ice cream. What's the big deal? The big deal is that our son will know she's your girlfriend. He's going to associate her with you, with family time. That means something to a kid. And if it ends, that's another loss he has to process. His voice hardened. I'm not going to live my life in fear of what if. If we work out, she's going to be in his life eventually. Why wait? Because stability matters, I said, probably louder than I should have. And because I'm his mother, and I get to say when it comes to people you bring into his world. If you won't listen to reason, I'll talk to my lawyer about putting something in writing. That last part came out before I could stop it, and I instantly regretted it. The silence on the other end was icy. Finally, he said, "Wow, threatening me with lawyers over a trip to the zoo. You really are something." Then he hung up again. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. That evening, when I picked up my son from school, I casually asked, "So, did Daddy tell you about any fun plans for the weekend?" He shrugged and said, "We're going to the zoo, and I'm going to meet Daddy's friend. Her name's Kelly. She likes dinosaurs." My heart sank. He already knew her name. He already had a picture in his head. She likes dinosaurs, so she must be cool. I forced a smile and said, "That sounds fun," but inside I felt this pang of helplessness. The next day, I decided to try one last time. I called him again in the morning. "I need you to understand this isn't about her. It's about the timing. Can you just wait a couple more months before introducing them? If you're still together, great. Then we can do it in a more gradual way." The morning after that text, "We're still going," end of discussion, I woke up with this pit in my stomach. It wasn't just dread. It was that sinking feeling you get before a storm you can't stop. I decided I couldn't just sit and wait for it to happen. I sent him one final message. "I'm telling you right now, you are not to introduce son to Kelly until you've been dating longer. If you do, I will consider it a violation of our co-parenting agreement and I will take action." Yes, I used all caps on not. I knew it was dramatic, but my emotions were running high. 15 minutes later, my phone rang. His name flashing on the screen made my heart pound. When I answered, he didn't even say hello. "You don't get to forbid me from doing anything. You're not in charge of me. You're not in charge of my life, and you're sure as hell not in charge of my time with my son." I tried to stay calm. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect him. "You're using him as an excuse to control me," he shot back. "You've always done this, acting like you know better about everything. Just because you're anxious about change doesn't mean I have to live in your bubble." That last line stung. I've always been aware that I'm the more cautious one, maybe overly so, but hearing it thrown in my face like it's some character flaw made me want to scream. "I'm his mother," I said slowly. "That means I do get to have a say in who is brought into his life. And 1 month is not enough time to know if someone is going to stick around. What happens if you break up next week or next month?" He gave a bitter laugh. "What happens if we get married and she becomes his stepmom? What, should I wait 2 years just to make you comfortable?" "Yes, if that's what it takes to make sure he's not forming attachments to strangers," I shot back before I could stop myself. That was it. He hung up. The rest of the day, my phone stayed quiet. No texts, no calls. The silence was its own kind of torture. That night, I went over to Claire's for wine and a vent session. I told her everything, from the driveway conversation to the zoo plan to the lawyer threat. She didn't hesitate. You're right. 1 month is nothing. Kids need stability, and he's being reckless. Her quick agreement felt good, but also dangerous. Because then my brain went, see, you're right. No need to question yourself. And yet, deep down, I knew not everyone would see it this way. So I decided to test the waters. I posted anonymously in a co-parenting Facebook group I follow. I gave a pared-down version of the situation. Divorced 3 years, 6-year-old son.
X has been dating someone for 1 month. Wants to introduce her during his custody week. I think it's too soon and told him not to. The comments flooded in, and they were split. Half of them were on my side. Totally agree with you. 1 month is way too soon. My ex did this and my kid got attached, then devastated when it ended. Stand your ground. Your ex sounds impulsive. You're protecting your child, not controlling him. The other half tore me apart. You can't dictate what happens on his time unless there's actual danger. You're projecting your own issues onto the kid. A month might be fast for you, but some people just know. One comment really got under my skin. You sound bitter. This is about you not liking the idea of him moving on, not about your son. I stared at that one for a long time, feeling my cheeks burn. I didn't think that was true. I've been dating someone myself for almost a year, and I'm happy. But the thought that maybe subconsciously there was a part of me that didn't like him moving forward so quickly, it gnawed at me. 2 days later, he texted again. We're still going to the zoo Saturday. If you try to stop me, that's on you. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. My mind started racing with worst-case scenarios. What if my son comes home talking about how amazing Kelly is? What if he asks if she can come over to my house? What if she becomes part of his life and I have zero control over it? That night, after putting my son to bed, I sat in the kitchen scrolling through articles about introducing kids to new partners. Every expert seemed to say the same thing. Wait at least 6 months. Some even said a year. I felt vindicated, but also powerless. Because the truth is, none of that mattered if my ex didn't agree. Unless there's an explicit clause in our custody agreement, and there isn't, he's free to make this choice. By Friday, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to physically try to stop him, but I was going to make my feelings crystal clear, and if things went south, I'd use it as leverage in court to add a clause about introductions. I sent one last text. If you go through with this, you're knowingly disregarding my concerns as son's mother. I will remember that. He replied almost instantly, and I'll remember you trying to control me. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept flipping between certainty and doubt. Was I being the protective parent my son needed? Or was I being the overbearing ex my ex accused me of being? I kept picturing my little boy's face, smiling, laughing, holding hands with this woman I'd never met. And I couldn't decide if that made me feel relieved, because maybe she's great, or terrified, because maybe she's temporary. Either way, Saturday was coming and I couldn't stop it. Saturday morning arrived like an unwelcome guest. I woke up before my alarm, that restless kind of awake where you can feel your heartbeat in your throat. My son padded into the kitchen, still in his dinosaur pajamas, his hair sticking up in every direction. Daddy's picking me up today. He's going to the zoo with Kelly. She's bringing snacks. I plastered on a smile and said, sounds like a fun day. Inside, I wanted to scoop him up and never let him go. I wanted to say, actually, you're staying here. Plans changed. But I didn't. At 10 a.m., my ex pulled up. Kelly wasn't with him, at least not yet. My son bolted for the door, backpack in hand. I walked him out, hugged him a little too tightly, and kissed the top of his head. Have fun, I said, forcing the words out. My ex and I barely made eye contact. No words about our argument, no olive branch, just a nod before they drove away. The rest of the day, I tried to distract myself. I cleaned the kitchen, folded laundry, even baked muffins I didn't really want.
but every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Around 3 p.m., I got a picture from my ex, our son grinning in front of the giraffe enclosure, holding a giant stuffed lion. Kelly was in the background, crouched down to his level, pointing at something in the distance. I stared at the picture for a long time. She looked normal. Nice, even. She was wearing a baseball cap and no makeup, and she seemed engaged with him, not faking it for the camera. My first thought wasn't relief, though. It was fear. Fear that my son would like her. Fear that he'd ask about her later, talk about her like she was part of his life now. And then I felt ashamed. Wasn't that what I wanted? For him to be surrounded by people who cared? Shouldn't I want her to be kind and patient? That evening, when my son came home, he was bubbling over with stories. Kelly got me popcorn, and she knows all the animal names, and she's really good at drawing tigers. I listened, nodding, smiling, feeling the strange mix of jealousy and guilt. Finally, he said, "Can Kelly come with us to the park sometime?" My stomach twisted. "Well, sweetheart, Kelly is Daddy's friend, so you'll see her when you're with him," I said as gently as I could. He looked disappointed for a moment, then went back to playing with his stuffed lion. After he went to bed, I sat on the couch in the dark, scrolling through my phone. I found myself looking at that picture again. My son, the giraffe, Kelly in the background. I thought about the worst-case scenarios I'd been obsessing over. Kelly disappearing, my son crying, the hurt and confusion. But what if it didn't go that way? What if she stuck around? What if she became someone who made his life better, even in small ways? The truth hit me like a punch. I can't control this. Not fully. I can voice my concerns, I can set boundaries where the law allows, but I cannot dictate every detail of his life when he's with his dad. And maybe that's okay. That doesn't mean I suddenly agree with my ex's timing. A month still feels reckless to me, but it also doesn't mean my fears will come true. I ended up calling Claire later that night. I think I need to accept that he's going to make choices I wouldn't make. I can't protect my son from every possible heartbreak. I just have to hope his dad is careful. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "That's the hardest part of co-parenting. Letting go of control without letting go of caring." She's right. I still care. Maybe too much. And I still think I had valid reasons to push back. But I also wonder if the way I went about it, forbidding, threatening lawyers, made things worse. So now I'm here, typing this out and putting it to strangers on the internet because I genuinely can't tell if I was protecting my child or just digging my heels in. On one hand, 1 month is barely enough time to know someone's last name, let alone if they're fit to be around your kid. I've read the research. Stability matters. Kids form attachments quickly. My ex has a history of impulsive choices, so my concern isn't coming from nowhere. On the other hand, it is his time with our son, and legally, he can introduce whoever he wants. I can't protect my son from every change or risk. Kelly might be a positive influence, and my resistance could come off as bitterness or control. I love my son more than anything in the world. I want to protect him from unnecessary pain, but I also don't want to be the villain in his dad's story, the controlling ex who tries to micromanage everything.